Trell stared at the steaming brown liquid in the small ceramic container with a mixture of scientific curiosity and deep apprehension. Around him, the university cafeteria buzzed with activity as human students shuffled in various states of alertness. His fellow exchange student Mira sat beside him, her four eyes blinking in synchronized confusion at the scene before them. "They consume this every morning?" Mira whispered, her translator device barely catching the subtle vibrations of her speech. Her blue-tinted skin shimmered under the fluorescent lights as she leaned closer to inspect the drink. "According to my observations, many consume it multiple times throughout their daily cycle," Trell responded, his antennae twitching slightly. Professor Jack said it was essential to understanding human culture. The Galactic exchange program had been hailed as a tremendous success across the United Systems. Sending students to Earth was considered both prestigious and challenging. While humans were relatively new to interstellar politics, they had quickly gained a reputation for being simultaneously fascinating and utterly baffling. Trell and Mira were among 12 alien students selected for Earth's premier university. Their mission: to understand humans through immersion in their educational system. No one had warned them about coffee. Across the table, their human guide Tom approached, carrying 3 cups of the mysterious brew. Despite having arrived at 8 a.m., Tom had appeared half dead until his first cup. Now, 20 minutes later, he bounded toward them with alarming energy. "Hey guys, brought you each a starter cup. Light roast with cream and sugar. Best way to begin your coffee journey." Tom's enthusiasm seemed directly proportional to his caffeine intake. Mira's exoskeleton stiffened slightly. On her homeworld, consuming mind-altering substances was strictly regulated. "This beverage changes your neurochemistry?" Tom laughed. "Yeah, that's kind of the point. It's got caffeine, helps us wake up, focus. You know? Your species intentionally consumes a psychoactive stimulant as part of daily routine?" Trell's voice modulator couldn't quite hide his astonishment. "And your government permits this?" "Permits? It? The government runs on it!" Tom took a long sip and sighed contentedly. "Most of human civilization does. Wait till you see the professor before her morning coffee. Scarier than that plasma storm that hit the station last week." Trell's research had indicated humans were resilient, but he hadn't realized they regularly poisoned themselves for productivity. Cautiously, he lifted the cup to his sensory membrane and analyzed the aroma. Complex organic compounds registered immediately, some potentially compatible with his biology, others questionable. Mira, ever the braver of the two, took a tiny sip. Her color shifted momentarily to a deeper blue. "It's bitter," she said, surprise evident in her tone. "Yet somehow pleasant?" Tom beamed proudly, as if he'd personally invented coffee. "You'll get used to it. By next week you'll be standing in line at the campus coffee shop like everyone else." Looking around, Trell noted the long queue of humans clutching empty containers, shuffling forward with the determined perseverance his species usually reserved for religious pilgrimages. Many looked at the baristas with an expression that bordered on worship. "Is this an addiction?" Trell asked bluntly. Tom laughed nervously. "I mean, technically yes, but it's a socially acceptable one. Look, humans need little boosts to get through our days. We're not as naturally efficient as your species." Trell found this fascinating. Humans acknowledged their biological limitations and created chemical solutions, which they then ritualized into their culture. As a xenoanthropology student, he couldn't have asked for a better research subject. "I will try it," he decided, bringing the cup to his intake valve. The liquid was indeed bitter, but complex. Floral notes and something earthy registered on his palate. Almost immediately, Trell felt his secondary circulatory system accelerate slightly. Information seemed to process faster in his neural network. "Oh," he said simply. "I understand the appeal." Tom grinned. "Welcome to humanity's oldest love affair. Just wait until I show you energy drinks." 3 weeks into the semester, and Trell found himself standing in line at Cosmic Beans, the most popular coffee shop on campus. His internal chronometer indicated it was 7:43 a.m., Earth Standard Time. Early by his species standards, but apparently peak coffee acquisition time for humans. "This is our 3rd visit this week," Mira noted beside him. Like Trell, she had developed what she called a scientific interest in the human coffee ritual. Unlike Trell, who needed a special adapter for his physiology, Mira could consume the beverage directly, though it turned her skin a vibrant teal for approximately 22 minutes afterward. "I'm documenting the sociological aspects," Trell responded, though his antennae quivered slightly, a sign of fibbing in his species. The truth was simpler. He had grown to enjoy the effect caffeine had on his neural pathways. The line shuffled forward. Humans in various states of consciousness clutched their communication devices or stared vacantly at the illuminated menu board. Most remarkable to Trell was their transformation after consumption, like watching a powered-down robot suddenly receiving a full charge. "Did you notice?" Mira whispered. "How many important human decisions seem to happen around coffee?" "Professor," Anna mentioned 3 separate historical peace treaties that were negotiated over coffee. Trell's sensory appendages perked up with interest, and Professor Ben's lecture on human economics referenced coffee as a driving factor in workforce productivity across centuries. They reached the counter where Ray, a barista who had become familiar with the alien students' custom orders, greeted them. "Hey, space cadets! The usual? 1 modified mocha for Trell and a double espresso for Mira?" Mira's 4 eyes blinked in affirmation. "You remembered. Hard to forget the only customer whose skin changes color after drinking my coffee," Ray laughed. "Best compliment I've ever gotten." As they waited for their drinks, Trell observed a group of human students huddled around a table, surrounded by digital displays and paper notebooks. Their discussion grew animated as they consumed their beverages. "That's the student government," explained Beth, another human in their xenobiology class who had joined them in line. "They're planning the Spring Festival." Notice how none of them makes eye contact or speaks in complete sentences until they've had at least half a cup. Beth had become their unofficial human culture guide, filling in gaps that their formal education missed. "I've developed a theory," Trell said quietly. "Coffee isn't just a beverage to humans. It's a cognitive enhancement tool that became culturally institutionalized." Beth nearly choked on her drink. "That's actually spot on. My mom literally has a sign in her kitchen that says, 'Don't talk to me until I've had my coffee.' It's not a joke. It's a safety warning." Mira accepted her espresso from Ray, her exoskeleton vibrating slightly in anticipation. "But isn't dependency on a substance considered problematic in human medicine?" Beth shrugged. "Theoretically. But civilization runs on coffee. The entire global economy would collapse without it. Seriously, look up coffee trade routes sometime. It's like viewing the nervous system of human commerce." As they found a table near the window, Trell noticed the university president walking past, surrounded by administrative staff. Each person, including the president, carried identical cups from Cosmic Beans. "Even your leaders," Trell observed. "The pattern is consistent across status hierarchies." "Coffee is the great equalizer," Beth said with a smile. "From students to presidents, we're all just humans looking for our next fix." Mira took a sip of her espresso, her skin already shifting hues. "It's fascinating how humans found a substance that temporarily compensates for their biological inefficiencies, then built an entire cultural framework around it." "I wouldn't call us inefficient," Beth protested mildly. "Just differently optimized." Trell considered this as he consumed his modified mocha through his adapter. The caffeine began to sharpen his senses, and a realization formed. Perhaps coffee wasn't just revealing human weakness, but human ingenuity. They had identified a limitation and transformed it into a ritual that not only addressed the problem but created community. "Maybe," he said slowly, "this is why humans advance so quickly compared to other species. You're not afraid to modify your basic functions if it helps you achieve more." Beth raised her cup in a toast. "To human dysfunction and our creative solutions to it." The mid-semester examination period descended upon the university like a solar storm. Sudden, intense, and potentially destructive. For Trell and Mira, it marked their first exposure to another mysterious human tradition, the all-nighter. "I don't understand," Mira said, her 4 eyes blinking in confusion as she watched their human classmates set up camp in the library. "Why not sleep and resume studying during standard daylight hours?" Sam, their physics lab partner, looked up from his tablet with bloodshot eyes. "Not enough time. Gotta cram everything in before the quantum mechanics exam tomorrow. It was 10 p.m., and the library had transformed into something resembling a refugee camp. Students had claimed territories with textbooks and digital displays, connecting power cells to various devices and, most notably, consuming coffee in quantities that alarmed even the now habituated alien students. But sleep consolidates learning in human brains, Trell pointed out, recalling their xenobiology lectures. Your cognitive function decreases by approximately 35% after 16 waking hours. Sam grinned and held up a massive container that humans called a thermos. That's what this is for. Triple shot espresso with an energy booster. I call it consciousness in a cup. Trell's antennae drooped slightly in concern. His monitoring device indicated the caffeine levels in Sam's beverage exceeded recommended safety parameters for human consumption. Before he could voice his concern, Alex, another classmate, arrived with an even larger container. Brought supplies, Alex announced, placing a device on the table. Portable coffee maker. We're going to need refills around 2 a.m. when the cafeteria closes. Mira's exoskeleton stiffened. You're planning to stay awake until morning? That's the plan, Sam confirmed. The exam's at 9 a.m. We'll study all night, fuel up on coffee, take the test, then crash for about 14 hours afterward. It's tradition, Alex added, as if that explained everything. Curious about this ritual, and concerned for their human friends' well-being, Trell and Mira decided to remain and observe. Their species required significantly less rest than humans, making them perfect witnesses to this peculiar behavior. By midnight, the library resembled a strange hybrid of academic workspace and caffeine dispensary. The university had seemingly anticipated this, as staff members wheeled carts through the aisles, offering free coffee to the bleary-eyed students. The institution supports this? Trell asked a library assistant. Encourages it, the woman replied cheerfully. Keeps them in the library instead of driving drowsy or doing other dangerous things to stay awake. Been a policy since the 2090s. As the night progressed, Trell documented fascinating changes in human behavior. Initial bursts of productivity gave way to increasingly nonsensical conversations, punctuated by fits of inappropriate laughter. Yet each new coffee round temporarily restored focus, a pattern that repeated with diminishing returns. At 3:27 a.m., Sam had an epiphany about quantum field equations that he insisted was revolutionary, though upon review the next day would prove to be gibberish. Alex developed a philosophical theory connecting coffee bean cultivation to the rise of democratic systems, which Mira recorded with scientific interest. The bean liberates the mind, Alex proclaimed, eyes wide and hands shaking slightly. Coffee is freedom in liquid form. By dawn, Trell had counted 14 empty cups around Sam and 12 near Alex. Both humans had entered a state that seemed neither fully conscious nor properly unconscious, a caffeine-induced limbo that simultaneously enhanced and degraded their cognitive functions. I can taste colors, Sam whispered at 5:48 a.m., staring into his empty cup with profound intensity. When 8 a.m. arrived, Trell and Mira escorted their human friends to the dining hall for breakfast, which, predictably, involved more coffee. Is this safe? Mira asked as Sam poured coffee over his cereal instead of milk, not even seeming to notice. Probably not, Alex admitted, hands trembling as they lifted their own cup. But humans have been doing this for centuries. Our bodies have adapted. Fascinating, Trell noted in his research log. Humans willingly endure temporary biological distress, believing the knowledge gained outweighs physical discomfort. After the exam, which both humans somehow completed despite their concerning state, Trell helped Sam back to his dormitory. Worth it, Sam mumbled before collapsing fully clothed onto his bed. Couldn't have done it without coffee. Trell's species didn't have exact equivalents for many human emotions, but as he observed his exhausted friend, he felt something akin to admiration. Humans push their biological limits through sheer determination and chemical assistance. Perhaps not the most efficient method, but undeniably impressive in its resilience. The Interstellar Cultural Exchange Conference arrived midway through the semester, bringing diplomats and academics from across the galaxy to Earth's premier university. As student representatives of their respective worlds, Trell and Mira were invited to participate, an honor that both excited and terrified them. What they hadn't anticipated was coffee's central role in interspecies diplomacy. Notice how all the meeting rooms are arranged, Professor Jack pointed out during their briefing. Coffee stations at strategic intervals, never more than 20 steps from any negotiation table. Trell observed the conference center with new awareness. The humans have weaponized their dependency, he murmured to Mira. They're attempting to introduce other species to coffee. The opening reception confirmed his suspicion. Human servers circulated with trays offering various coffee preparations modified for different biological systems. Trell watched with fascination as an Arcturian diplomat cautiously sampled a specialized brew, their luminescent tendrils brightening noticeably afterward. "Welcome to the Earth delegation," announced Director Lisa, the university's liaison to the Galactic Council. "We believe shared customs facilitate understanding, so we invite you to partake in our traditional beverage of diplomatic engagement." Mira leaned closer to Trell. "They're not even hiding it. It's a cultural assimilation tactic." "Brilliant strategy," Trell admitted. "Create dependency in other species' diplomatic corps." They weren't the only ones who noticed. Ambassador Dorv, a veteran negotiator from the Centauri Alliance, approached them during the reception. "Young students," the ambassador said quietly, voice modulator adjusted to a confidential tone. "I see you've already been initiated into the human coffee ritual." Mira's exoskeleton flushed slightly teal, the lingering effect of her morning espresso. "We've been studying its cultural significance." Dorv's compound eyes glimmered with amusement. "When humans joined the Galactic Council 70 years ago, they installed coffee stations in all meeting chambers within the first month. 6 council species now begin their days with coffee. Coincidentally, those 6 species have the most favorable trade agreements with Earth." Trell's antennae twitched with interest. "You suggest correlation between coffee consumption and diplomatic outcomes?" "I suggest nothing," Dorv replied carefully. "I merely observe that humans export their customs along with their commerce. The bean precedes the treaty, as the saying goes." As if to illustrate the point, across the room, the normally reserved Phobian delegation had gathered around a coffee tasting station. Their characteristic reticence seemed diminished as they engaged animatedly with the human barista explaining brewing methods. The following day, Trell and Mira attended a panel discussion on interspecies educational standards. Before the session began, human staff distributed coffee to all participants. Trell noted with interest how the previously tense atmosphere relaxed as delegates consumed their beverages. "The caffeine creates a minor neurochemical dependency," explained Dr. Wren, a xenobiologist who had befriended the alien students. "But the ritual creates psychological bonds. Humans have always connected over shared consumption. It's hardwired into our social structure." "Is it deliberate?" Mira asked. "This coffee diplomacy?" Dr. Wren smiled cryptically. "Let's just say that when first contact occurred, Earth's initial diplomatic package included coffee plants and brewing equipment. Within a decade, 3 alien worlds had begun their own coffee cultivation programs." Throughout the 3-day conference, Trell documented 17 separate instances where deadlocked discussions were paused for coffee breaks, only to resume with newfound cooperation. The correlation was impossible to ignore. On the final day, during the closing ceremony, Earth's chief diplomat made the strategy explicit. "Before humans reached the stars," she announced to the gathered representatives, "coffee beans traveled the globe, connecting disparate cultures through shared appreciation. A Ethiopian bean might be harvested, shipped to Italy for roasting, then brewed in Japan using methods pioneered in Turkey. Coffee created a global language long before translator devices existed." She raised her cup in a toast. "Today, beans from Earth grow on 7 different worlds. We share more than diplomatic agreements. We share a daily ritual that binds us in understanding." Later, as delegates departed, Trell overheard 2 Proximan officials discussing plans to increase their coffee import quotas. Nearby, a vegan representative was arranging for a barista exchange program. "It's genius," Trell told Mira as they walked back to their dormitory. "Humans have managed to spread their addiction across the galaxy, disguised as cultural appreciation." Mira's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, her species equivalent of thoughtful consideration. "Perhaps. But maybe they're not wrong about its connective properties. I've noticed our own interactions with humans flow more naturally when shared over coffee." Trell couldn't argue with that observation. Their integration into Earth's academic community had accelerated proportionally with their coffee consumption, a correlation that was becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss as coincidence. The global alert came without warning. Displays across campus flashed with emergency notifications, and human students gathered in clusters, their faces displaying various stages of what Trell now recognized as anxiety and dread. "What's happening?" Mira asked, as they entered the common area where a crowd had formed around the news projection. "Coffee crops worldwide have been hit by a new fungal variant," explained Beth, their human friend who appeared more distressed than Trell had ever seen her. 70% of global production is affected. They're calling it the Great Caffeine Shortage. The news projections showed images of withered coffee plants, emergency governmental meetings, and something truly alarming: humans lined up outside stores, stockpiling coffee with the desperate intensity usually reserved for natural disasters. "Is it truly so serious?" Trell inquired, his translator struggling to convey the appropriate level of concern. Beth looked at him as though he'd suggested breathing was optional. "You don't understand. Society literally runs on coffee. Without it—" She trailed off, apparently unable to verbalize the catastrophic implications. Over the next 72 hours, Trell and Mira witnessed a transformation in human behavior that no xenobiology textbook had prepared them for. The campus coffee shops instituted rationing, 1 small cup per person per day. The underground economy boomed overnight, with coffee, beans trading like precious metals in secretive dormitory transactions. 3 assignments worth of chemistry homework for half a pound of dark roast, Trell overheard in the library, where students had established an elaborate bartering system. Professor Anna canceled morning lectures, stating simply in her communication, "Without coffee, I cannot guarantee coherent instruction or basic human decency." By the 5th day, withdrawal symptoms became apparent throughout the human population. Headaches were the most commonly reported affliction, followed by lethargy and irritability that bordered on hostility. "I've never seen them like this," Mira whispered as they observed the shuffling, morose humans in the dining facility. "It's as if their life force is diminishing." Trell had been meticulously documenting the societal changes. "The most fascinating aspect is the collapse of social hierarchies. Deans and maintenance staff alike scour the grounds for remaining coffee sources. Status becomes irrelevant in the face of shared deprivation." The university administration declared a state of emergency on day 7, converting to remote learning, as productivity plummeted. Campus security established patrols around the remaining coffee storage facilities after an attempted raid by desperate students. It was during this crisis that Trell had his revelation. "We need to contact the Galactic Exchange Board," he told Mira urgently. "My homeworld has botanical adaptation technologies that could modify our fungi-resistant crops to produce caffeine-equivalent compounds." Mira's exoskeleton vibrated with excitement, "and my world's atmospheric modulators could create perfect growing conditions in controlled environments." Within hours, they had drafted a proposal and transmitted it through the quantum communication array. The response came faster than protocol typically allowed. Apparently, the shortage had affected diplomatic channels as well, creating unprecedented motivation for interstellar cooperation. 3 days later, a Galactic Council science vessel arrived in Earth orbit, carrying botanical specimens and terraforming equipment. The university grounds were designated as the first test site, with Trell and Mira appointed as project liaisons due to their first-hand understanding of the crisis. The human response was immense. Students and faculty volunteered en masse to assist with the emergency cultivation project. The university president herself worked alongside maintenance staff, preparing growing chambers according to alien specifications. "I never imagined humans could mobilize so efficiently," Mira remarked as they supervised the installation of atmospheric regulators. "Desperation is a powerful motivator," Trell replied. "Though I must admit, their cooperative capacity is impressive." The first synthetic caffeine compounds were ready for testing within 2 weeks. The human volunteers who sampled the alien-assisted brew reported effects comparable to traditional coffee, though with subtle notes of interstellar collaboration, as one poetic barista described it. Production scaled rapidly, with distribution networks establishing themselves through grassroots organization. Within a month, the university had become an unlikely hub of caffeine innovation, with students applying their academic skills to improve production methods. As human functionality returned to normal parameters, Trell observed something unexpected: gratitude. expressed not just through words, but through actions. Humans began attending xenobiology lectures in record numbers, initiated cultural exchange programs, and established scholarships for alien students. They're reciprocating, Mira noted. The coffee crisis created a foundation for genuine cooperation. At an emergency Galactic Council session, Earth's representative formally acknowledged the alien intervention. Throughout human history, coffee has connected cultures and fostered dialogue. Now, it has done the same across star systems. This crisis has revealed that despite our biological differences, we share common needs and common solutions. As the synthetic caffeine technology spread globally, human-alien relations entered a new phase. Coffee, once merely a subject of alien research, had become a bridge between worlds. 6 months after the Great Caffeine Shortage, the university launched the Interstellar Caffeine Research Initiative, the first major cross-species scientific collaboration centered entirely around coffee. Due to their pivotal role during the crisis, Trell and Mira were appointed student directors, working alongside human and alien researchers. "It's remarkable," Professor Jack commented during the inaugural meeting. "A year ago, you two were baffled by our coffee consumption. Now you're leading research into its galactic applications." The initiative had transformed the university's East Campus into a sprawling complex of laboratories, greenhouses, and testing facilities. Funding had poured in from both human governments and alien consortiums, all recognizing coffee's newfound status as a substance of interstellar significance. The research program was divided into 3 branches: botanical adaptation, neurological, effects across species, and cultural integration practices. Trell headed the neurological research team, while Mira oversaw cultural studies. Today's experiment focuses on caffeine's impact on Andromedan cognitive processes, Trell explained. To his research assistants, a mix of human graduate students and alien specialists, previous trials suggested a 47% increase in mathematical processing speed. In the adjacent laboratory, an Andromedan mathematician sipped a specially modified brew while solving complex equations. Monitors displayed their neural activity, which flared in patterns that made the human researchers gasp. "The caffeine analog is stimulating areas of their brain previously thought dormant," one assistant noted. "It's like watching new neural pathways form in real time." Similar breakthroughs occurred throughout the complex. In the botanical division, scientists had successfully created hybrid plants capable of growing in environments previously considered hostile to Earth vegetation. The cultural integration team documented coffee rituals that had spontaneously developed on 12 different worlds. During their weekly coordinating meeting, Mira presented particularly fascinating findings. "Coffee consumption appears to correlate with accelerated language acquisition across species," she explained, displaying comparative data. "Aliens who participate in regular coffee rituals with humans demonstrate 28% faster mastery of human languages, and humans show similar improvements with alien communication. The ritual creates context for meaningful exchange," suggested Dr. Wren, now heading the Xenocultural Studies Department. "But we believe the caffeine itself enhances neuroplasticity during these interactions." As the initiative gained momentum, its implications extended beyond science. Diplomatic protocols throughout the galaxy began incorporating coffee ceremonies. The Galactic Council established coffee breaks during all major negotiations, a practice that demonstrably improved cooperation rates. Trell found himself increasingly reflecting on the journey from confused exchange student to research director. During a rare, quiet moment in his laboratory, he shared these thoughts with Beth, who had joined the initiative as a communications specialist. "When we first arrived, I considered human coffee dependency a biological weakness," he admitted. "Now, I see it catalyzed one of the most significant advances in interspecies relations," Beth smiled. "Humans have a saying, never underestimate what can happen over a cup of coffee. Throughout our history, revolutions were planned, businesses founded, and marriages proposed, all with coffee as the witness." The most unexpected development came 3 months into the initiative, when Trell's team discovered that the synthetic caffeine compounds had applications beyond consciousness-altering beverages. The molecular structure, when modified slightly, showed promise as an efficient biofuel and potential treatment for several neurological conditions affecting multiple species. At the quarterly review presentation attended by university officials, and Galactic Council representatives, Professor Jack summarized their progress. What began as an alien observation of a quirky human habit has evolved into a scientific revolution. Coffee, a simple bean that once grew only in specific regions of Earth, may now power our ships, heal our minds, and connect our cultures. The Galactic Council's chief science officer, initially skeptical of the initiative, offered remarkable praise. In my 5 centuries of oversight, I have rarely witnessed a substance with such multifaceted benefits. What humans instinctively valued, for millennia science is only now beginning to understand. As the official proceedings concluded, researchers and dignitaries alike gathered in the initiative's common area, designed to resemble a traditional Earth cafe. Beverages were served according to each species' preference, the atmosphere buzzing, with animated conversation across language barriers. Trell found himself standing beside Mira, both watching the seamless interaction of beings from dozens of worlds. "Did you ever imagine," Mira asked quietly, "that our confusion over a bitter brown liquid would lead to this?" Trell's antennae wavered in what had become his approximation of human amusement. It seems humans were right all along. Sometimes the universe does make more sense after coffee. One Earth year after their arrival as bewildered exchange students, Trell and Mira stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching shuttles arrive from across the galaxy. Each carried delegates for the first Universal Coffee Symposium, an event that had begun as a modest academic conference and evolved into a gathering of interstellar significance. "The humans have a saying," Mira noted, her exoskeleton gleaming under the station's lights. "From small beans, mighty trees grow." Trell's antennae twitched appreciatively at her use of Earth idiom. "I believe the actual phrase involves acorns, but your adaptation is more contextually appropriate." Below them, Earth rotated serenely, its continents now dotted with the distinctive patterns of coffee cultivation areas, both traditional plantations and the new hybridized growing facilities developed through their research initiative. Even more remarkable were the similar patterns visible on terraformed sections of Mars and several orbital habitats. "Director Lisa is looking for us," Beth called from the entranceway. "The opening ceremony begins in 20 minutes. They made their way through the station's grand concourse, now transformed into an exhibition space showcasing coffee traditions from Earth and beyond. Human baristas worked alongside alien culinary specialists, demonstrating brewing techniques that had been adapted for different physiologies. Diplomatic teams mingled casually, cups in hand or appropriate appendages. The symposium's main hall had been designed to evoke the atmosphere of ancient coffeehouses where, as humans often reminded them, many Earth civilizations had experienced periods of great philosophical and scientific advancement. The center featured a massive artwork, a stylized coffee plant with roots spreading across a star map, marking worlds where coffee cultivation had taken hold. As they took their places, on the stage, Trell surveyed the assembled delegates. Representatives from 126 worlds had arrived for the symposium, an unprecedented gathering for an event not centered on crisis management or treaty negotiation. Director Lisa opened the proceedings with a brief address, her voice carrying throughout the hall thanks to advanced acoustic design. 1 year ago, 2 alien students stood in our university cafeteria, staring in confusion at cups of coffee. Today, they lead research that has revolutionized interspecies relations. Their journey symbolizes coffee's new role in our shared future, not just as a human tradition, but as a universal connection point. The symposium's first day featured scientific presentations on caffeine's effects across different biological systems. Trell presented his team's latest findings on neural enhancement properties, noting with satisfaction the engaged expressions of delegates from even the most scientifically advanced worlds. The second day focused on cultural exchange, with Mira moderating discussions on how coffee rituals were being integrated into various societies. Particularly moving was a presentation from representatives of a historically isolated species who attributed their recent diplomatic opening to coffee diplomacy. The ritual created neutral territory for dialogue, they explained through translators. The shared experience of consumption established baseline trust that formal protocols never achieved. Throughout the gathering, Trell observed humans with a newfound appreciation. Their coffee obsession, once seemingly irrational, had proven remarkably prescient. A simple plant from one world had become a unifying force across the galaxy, not through imposition, but through shared experience. On the symposium's final evening, a ceremony was held in the observation dome, offering panoramic views of Earth and the star-filled expanse beyond. At precisely calculated intervals, lights became visible on planets and stations throughout the system. Coffee cultivation facilities, illuminating in synchronized recognition. The university president, now serving as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, offered concluding remarks. Historically, humans searched for universal translators, mathematical constants, and music as means to connect with other intelligences. Yet our most effective bridge proved to be something humbler, a morning ritual many of us took for granted. She raised her cup in a gesture now recognized across species. To coffee. Once the fuel of human civilization, now a catalyst for universal cooperation. As the assembled delegates participated in the toast, each with beverages adapted to their biology, Trell and Mira exchanged glances of quiet understanding. Their research had documented the neurological, botanical, and diplomatic impacts of coffee throughout galactic society. Yet perhaps its greatest value remained its simplest. The creation of moments like this, where beings separated by vast biological and cultural differences could share a moment of collective appreciation. Later, as the gathering dispersed, Trell found himself back on the observation deck, contemplating Earth below. Professor Jack joined him, carrying 2 cups. "Thought you might appreciate the original version," the professor said, offering a cup of traditional Earth coffee. "Sometimes with all the modifications and adaptations, it's good to remember where it all began." Trell accepted the cup, using the specialized adapter that had become as familiar to him as any of his scientific instruments. "When we first arrived," Trell said reflectively, "I considered human coffee consumption an evolutionary inefficiency, a chemical dependency that compensated for biological limitations." Professor Jack smiled. "And now?" Trell's antennae moved in the gesture he had developed to indicate profound consideration. "Now, I see it was your species' secret advantage. A daily ritual that simultaneously enhanced individual capability while strengthening social cohesion. Not bad for a bitter brown bean," the professor noted. Below them, the Terminator line moved across Earth's surface, bringing dawn to new regions. Trell knew that with that dawn, humans would begin their daily coffee rituals, now joined by beings across thousands of light-years, connected by a simple custom that had transcended its origins. "In our initial reports to the exchange program," Trell admitted, "we described humans as bafflingly dependent on caffeine stimulation. I believe I owe your species a correction." "Oh?" Professor Jack raised an eyebrow. "Yes," Trell replied, raising his cup in the human gesture of respect. It should have read, "Brilliantly adaptive in creating chemical and cultural tools for advancement. The universe is only beginning to catch up to what humans have known all along." As they stood watching Earth rotate below, countless beings across the galaxy participated in the ritual that had begun millennia ago on that small blue planet. A sip of understanding that now united the stars. The end.